So today I'm going to be doing a video on how to dye golf discs, particularly like the shaving cream method. I've done video on the spin method, and there's a couple other methods out there. I found that the shaving cream method is pretty good. You can use it in several different ways, either to do like the brainwave, where you get this, kind of confetti dye kind of effect, but you can still use a stencil, or to do it where you use the shaving cream, color it, and do layers with the stencil by taking off different layers. I found that it has a really good clean look to it. A lot of people really like, the colors and everything like that, and how much versatility it has. So there's a lot to go over. We'll get right into it. Hopefully you found this video. Let's get into the supplies that you need to actually do the dyeing. Try to go through this kind of quick too. You're going to need shaving cream, of course. You can get this either the nicer brand or just the Dollar General brand. Do not get the gel that turns into a foam. It does not do as good. It's more of a sloppy. It's not as thick on the dye. Need some acetone so you can take your stamps off. I use little solo cups to mix up the dye and the shaving cream in. You don't need the big solo cups if you don't want them, of course. When you actually get it, you're going to need some paint brushes. You can get some finer ones so you can actually put it on the design where you want it if you're going to pinpoint, if you're not dipping the entire disc in. You'll need some little spray bottle. I use this one because it mist. Actually, a misting spray bottle is better than one that would actually shoot out like a large amount of water, because what you do is once you get the shaving cream spread across the plate, you sprinkle the dye on. It's a powdered form, and you spritz it with the water. You don't want to get too concentrated because you'll make sloppy areas with puddles of water, and you'll get different dyeing consistencies. My dye that I use is dye poly. I put it in this paint container because it's all powdered and it's easier to keep it this way. I have been using this dye for over a year and a half, and I mean, I have not run out. There's a lot of dye in here. Dye poly, you can get it at Michael's, or you can get it off of Amazon, and get one of these paint containers to stick it in. This one actually has a really good closing lid because this stuff is powder. Like I said, it'll go everywhere. You got to be kind of careful. I'd say use contact paper or wax paper to put down whenever you're dyeing. If you don't, the little bits of dye that get out on the edges, and then you spritz it with the water, that will dye your countertop or your table or whatever you're using. You're also going to use the the contact paper when you actually put the vinyl sticker on. Of course, you'll need some vinyl, either to cut out or to get either like a sticker company to cut it out for you, or find somebody who has a Cricut cutter or something like that, and you can get some really nice stickers cut out so you can put it on your discs. If not, I mean, the first couple years that I did these discs, I drew everything with a Sharpie marker and then used an X-Acto knife and a knife to cut everything out. Much more time consuming, but when you're first starting out, a lot of people don't have the means to get to, nicer stickers. So that's what people use. You're gonna need some gloves and some plates. The big thing I'll say whenever you get a plate is get a plate that's big enough, number one, that you're gonna throw away because it's gonna be saturated with dyed shaving cream when you get done. Also, get one that's big enough where you can grab the plate and slowly lower it down onto the shaving cream, and the plate is big enough to where it'll fit. The disc will fit in there. If not, if you get a plate that's too small, you won't get all the way to the edge where you need to whenever you're dyeing. That's pretty much it for now. We're going to get to the fun part. This is the actual stickering and laying it down on the disc. The really critical part you have to be on this is, especially if you have like a round sticker, you want to make sure that you get it straight. A lot of times that's really hard. So we'll get to, I have 5 different discs that I'm going to do today. 5 different, not 5 different styles, but there's different ways that you can do each one. The one thing I'll say whenever you're actually doing your stickers are look at the way that you cut it, the way that you weed it out. Of course, the weeded part is the parts of the sticker that you take off before you put this on the contact paper. Look at the pieces that you take out, because then when you lay that down, of course, it's going to be reversed, but also that's what you're going to be putting the dye on. There's another way to do this to where on this one, I actually already put the sticker, the vinyl sticker on there, and I put it's on the contact paper, put the contact paper on the disc. And you want to make sure that you cover the entire edge of the disc, because when you lay this down in the shaving cream, you don't want it getting over the edge and getting on the back side of your disc. That's why I always leave excess, and of course I curl this over before I lay it down into the shaving cream. This one, you notice I didn't weed any at all. That's because I'm going to cut the outside of this, try to keep it nice and clean where I don't have any bleed over where the shaving cream dyes. And this is actually a lotus or a cicada on this disc. You can't really see that very good right now, but you will later in the video. I'm going to take off individual pieces of the petal and I'm going to dye different colors. I'm going to go through different layers to color, darker to lighter, lighter to darker. It's almost like a geometric type design that's going to be on this one. So like I said, try to figure out what you want your end result to be, because, you know, watch this video in completion to try to figure out how you want to do yours. Don't just try to jump in and follow along, because you're going to want to see how you do this, and what your end result's going to be is going to be exactly how you're going to weed your sticker. Like this one, for instance, I've left the outside. I'm going to leave that. That's going to be dark. Everything in the blue is going to be what's be shown. This one, it was kind of a negative, because it's going to be on the outside here. This is just going to be a logo on the inside. This will be outside, inside, inside, outside, etc. So, like I said, we'll get through this. I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a minute, and we'll set it up on how to put the actual sticker on the contact paper. This part will actually be getting the vinyl sticker onto the contact paper, and then trying to line your contact paper up on the disc. So with this, what I always do is make sure, like I said, you cut the contact paper where it is bigger than the disc, and you can wrap all the way across the edges. You get your sticker and your disc, get your contact paper, pull off the back side, and get your contact paper laid out somewhere flat. Try not to get any fingerprints on there. Another thing, when you actually have this disc and you have it nice and clean, you just use acetone on it and everything. Perfect, great. Say you're using a used discs, you wiped it off a little bit. Make sure you wipe it off really good. Use some alcohol, use some acetone or whatever. You can actually dye these with the logo still on, just so you know. And a lot of the times the stamp will not dye at all. So if you want to do just a brainwave with the stamp still on, I've done that a couple times, but even with that, make sure that you clean everything but the stamp with acetone or alcohol, because any little fingerprint in the plastic, you're going to have a little area where it's not going to dye good. So I'm doing this in front of the window, so it's kind of nice because I can see through my my stamp here. But try to get your sticker lined up somewhat in the middle. Kind of start at one edge and then work your way across. What you want to do is you want to rub that sticker on really good, because the next step is you're going to be pulling the dry paper across off the back of this. So make sure that you have this nice and rubbed down. I actually already have done over here. Nice and rubbed down. You're going to slowly pull your contact or your backing off. When you're doing this, like I said, slow. Make sure you're slow. And if anything doesn't stick, like if you can see here, kind of hold it up. A couple of these, like they didn't stick, so the white. What you do, all you do is push it back down, try to get to the edge there. Use your fingernail, or honestly, don't use your fingernail, use an X-Acto knife, do it right. And just kind of pull that sticker back. Like, give it just a little bit of pressure down to where it's going to stick to the contact paper, and then continue with your pull. Now, the more of a angle you can pull, I've found if you pull straight, like at a 40 or 90 degree angle, you're going to pull almost everything off. If you pull this back like this, nice and flat, you get it to where the sticker kind of rolls off of the backing paper, and it looks like it's going to work out pretty good. Not a bad thing. Yeah, of course you can get it stuck to the contact paper a little bit, but if you touch anything, try to touch the areas that you're not going to be worried about them being stuck to the disc, like so. Okay. Now, we're going to be taking that and lining it up in almost the exact same process, making sure that you're lining it up. Of course, this is a little easier because you can see exactly where your design is going to be laying down. Once you get it started, make sure you don't have any bubbles or anything in it. Like I said, start off on one edge and get it going, and then kind of push your way across. And go slowly to where you make sure that you don't have any air bubbles or creases or anything like that. Because if you have any creases or anything in the vinyl, whenever you actually put this in the shaving cream, the shaving cream is going to bleed out from the creases. Even if you have a nice cut line and you try to smash it down with a knife or something, it's going to bleed out to the creases, and you're going to get out, and you're going to have these lines that are kind of fade out. A good example is that literally happened with my Majora's Mask disc. If you see here, when I had this cut, the design was cut here, and you see at the edge of the disc, it came over here and it started bleeding out, ran to the edge of the disc, and that's why I ended up doing additional dyeing to try to dye the entire outer edge to make it look to where, it was a mistake, but nobody really knows unless you point it out. But it's one of those things. You go through the entire process, you know what you did right and what you did wrong, and if it bothers you, then try to fix it, keep messing around with it. So once you get this pressed on, use your fingernail, use the back of a spoon, whatever, and press that into the plastic really good. Because the next step is going to be either cutting or pulling this contact paper off. So one of the reasons I say watch this video in its completion is to figure out how you want your disc to look and think about the, what areas you want dyed, what areas you don't want dyed. On this one, I could go several ways with it. I could take the contact paper off, and I could take all this white off and all the contact paper off. I could have the Cactus Dye dyed, and then I would have everything outside of this line, which because the white would be gone, dyed as well. But I really like that plasma yellow. It's really nice, it's pretty. So what I did is, I still have the contact paper across the entire disc. I took an X-Acto knife, and not pressing down very hard, I made I traced the outline all the way around the sticker of just what I do want dyed. So I want to leave all the contact paper here, out there. I want to leave it all the way. So like I said, I did not push down hard enough to cut through the white vinyl, but I did cut through the thin contact paper. And now I'm pulling the contact paper off to leave just the area that I want dyed down. Now, the same thing when you're pulling the contact paper backing off. Kind of go slow, kind of go at an angle. If you have any pieces that start pulling up, if you have any of the actual vinyl that starts pulling up, you're going to want to push it back down with your fingernail or the X-Acto knife. Just make sure you go slow, because this is not the part that you want to rush and mess up, for sure. Now that I have it like that, I can throw that piece of contact paper away. Now I have a surface area, and it's going to be kind of hard in the video to see. At that angle you can kind of. You can see the satin to the shine. Everything that's yellow in here is going to be dyed. Everything out here is going to stay nice and plasma'd. It's not going to be touched. That's why I'm going to wrap this around the edge. Or when I put that down into the shaving cream, the edge is not going to be touched. I can put it down nice and tight, and I'll have a clean area of dye. So I'm going to get the next disc ready, and then we'll talk about how you can go forward from here and what way to go. We'll go through on each disc of the way I'm doing it. This one, because I'm leaving the entire sticker on, and then I'm going to pick and choose which parts of the petals. You might be able to see a little bit. It's going to be kind of hard. Okay, at that angle you can kind of see some cuts. There's a lot of little individual cuts to the wing. So I'm pulling, kind of like what I did on the Cactus Guy, I'm pulling, oh, so you had a little piece right there that came off. All I'm going to do is smash it back down with my thumb. Make sure that that's nice and pulled, and then pull at a different angle this time to try to leave that little piece on there. That worked out. So, like I did on the Cactus Guy, I'm cutting just the sticker. I'm going to leave this here, and I'm just cutting this inner area out and pulling the contact paper only off of that. So you can see this bubble here. I made sure that I cut around that bubble because you don't want that bubble coming out into your dye. You don't want any bubbles across any cuts. So even after you get it cut, you can take your finger and smash all this down real nice. Make sure you have tight lines against the actual plastic. I did the same thing. I cut around the edge. I want just the darker part, the pieces that I cut out of the inside, to be dyed. So I'm going to go carefully across this and pull this off. I just went, like I said, around this white edge. I left the contact paper here on the outside because I want all that dyed. So this disc, which is pretty intricate, that was pretty hard to get all those little sticker pieces exactly where they needed to go. Same thing I did on this one. I went with the knife. You can see the kind of line here between the satin and the gloss. I'm just going to dye on the inside of the sticker. I'm going to leave the blue out here, leave the white here. So just these parts right here are going to be dyed. Kind of go to kind of a darker on that one because there's so much little detail. With something like this, you want to get a darker dye to where it's almost like a black, especially across this kind of a neutral blue here. You're going to want to be able to see all those details. So anything like a yellow or red is not really going to stand out. So this one's going to be a little bit harder because I realized that I made the sticker a little big for the disc. It's going to be kind of hard to line it up and get it to where it lays on there. But I'm going to try my damnedest here. So this one, the white edge, it's kind of bleeding over onto the black rim of the MVP disc, but that'll still dye nicely. Usually I like to fit the entirety of the sticker within the space, but you see how that one kind of wraps around the edge, so you're going to have some trail off there, but because it's a black rim, it should still work out pretty good. So same thing we do on the other ones. Take your finger, take your time, rub it in real good to where you get the vinyl sticker to stick to the actual disc. So on this one, I actually want the edge dyed, so I'm taking all of the, oh, see, screwed that up a little bit. It's going too fast. Trying to make a video. I'm going to pull all of the vinyl off because I want the inside of the tiger and I want the outside of the design also dyed. So by the way, when you go to make these designs like this, to get really crisp and clear lines, I found, try to find vector images. I don't pay for any of my artwork. As far as like, I don't have a Shutterstock account or anything like that, you know. I actually have a degree in graphic design, which kind of makes things a little easier for me. But there's plenty of amazing artists online who, you know, allow people to use their work as long as you're not redistributing it and, you know, selling it, then they won't mind. You know, just talk to them. But yeah, so now we're going to get to the actual process of the dyeing. So on this disc here with the pilot, with the skull, the smoke and everything, I want to do kind of design like this to where I have nice crisp lines. It's not going to be really brainwave. So we'll go over that method first. Of that one, we're going to be doing is taking some shaving cream. And this can might be all the way out. Let's see here. No, got a little bit. Put a little bit of water in it. One of the water to shaving cream things, your consistency is something that you still want it thick enough to where you can paste it on. It's not going to pour out of the cup, but you don't want it so thick that it's unusable to kind of use. Move some of the stuff out of the way so we have a little more light. We want to be able to paint it on, basically, is what I'm saying. But you don't want it so thick that it's just going to gum up. So what I'm going to do is take some of this iodide poly. I'm going to take a little mixture of the purple and brown, and I think I'll actually put a little bit of red in there. The red really has a nice deep saturation to it. So mixing all three of these colors up, and when I do the little cups like this, I actually use more dye than when I do the brainwave. The brainwave is you don't want to use as much because the dye gets all bunched up, and it makes these dry spots where it doesn't soak into the plastic, and we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. Now, one thing, I'm being kind of messy right now because I'm trying to get this video done. I don't want to take up, you know, an hour of y'all's time and everything, but these little bits of powdery dust, it's getting off on the paper and everything like that. If you touch that stuff, it will dye you. It'll definitely get on whatever. I don't know if you saw that. Even when I started mixing this in, some of the dye spilled right out of the cup, went on the art. That's why I have the parchment paper down. That's why it's got on my finger and everything. If I start to wash that off, it's definitely going to dye my finger. But making a nice, thick, dark colored paste is what I'm doing right now. And the good thing about this process is you can wash it off. You can leave the sticker on, carefully wash it off. When I say wash it off, I mean wash the dye that you have on the actual disc off when you get done, when it's set for an hour or two. And then if it's not dark enough, just do it again. You don't have to do anything with the actual the disc. You know, you don't have to reapply a sticker or anything. Leave the sticker on and keep going until you're happy with the results. So on this one, I kind of use a dabbing almost method, because you want, as the shaving cream starts to get oxidated, you know, the air kind of gets to it, starts foaming up, it's going to kind of bubble, and then you've seen old shaving cream, how it kind of fizzes. The water kind of helps make this a little thicker to where it doesn't do that as quick either. But you want to get it a nice thick paste, and you want to make sure that you cover every single area. Don't get any air bubbles underneath where you're actually putting the disc. And it doesn't have to be pretty on top, you just have to make sure that you can't see any of your colored disc through where you have the shaving cream. Because if you see color, you're not getting a good saturation at that point, you know, at that spot. Because when the shaving cream starts to evaporate into the air, which is, you know, it's basically what it does, you'll start to be able to see the disc through it. And I usually leave these, especially with a nice consistent mixture like this, minimum hour. You know, you can use, I mean, if you want to see, I'll give you a good example here now that I got this covered. So on this disc right here, I used yellow for his shirt, and then I used the yellow with just a little mixture of red. I left this on for about 45 minutes. I left this on for about 5 minutes before I wash it off real quick, and that's how I got that light skin color. It's still yellow. It's mixed with just a slight little bit of brown. I think I put just a dot of red in there and mixed it up until the shaving cream, you know, looked pretty good. And like I said, this is different saturations. This is 45 minutes, this is 5 minutes, and you see how it's a little lighter, but that's what I want. I want that skin tone for the, you know, the Vault-Tec guy to be like that. When you're doing something like this, you can leave it on there. The longer you leave it, pretty much the more saturated. I've left them overnight. I've left them in the garage for 2 days. I mean, I've done it in different ways. I find at some point you're not going to get any darker. You know, they say that heat intensifies the dyeing. I have tried to use a heat gun, you know, and hit the back side of the disc and everything. I've melted the shaving cream like that. And then I've also used acetone. Or you can even use some of this. I didn't actually show this earlier, but this is worm dye, and this, if you see, is Dip and Glow plastic soft worm dye. Spike it. It has like a chartreuse type color, and this is actually a little darker because it's had other dyes mixed in with the paintbrush in it. You can use that in there too. It has a little acetone in it. It actually dyes the plastic and kind of opens up the I'm not going to get into the molecular level of what it does, but it basically opens up the polymers of the plastic for it to soak in the dye, and then when you rinse it off, you're getting rid of the chemical reaction that the acetone gives it. So, I mean, there's a smarter way to say that, I'm sure, but we'll stick with that for now. The only problem with using the acetone I've found is it will mess up with the plastic. I've actually had discs that were kind of warped because I had acetone, too much acetone in the dye. I like to leave the disc to where it's not messed up whenever I get done with it. So we're gonna let this sit. I'll put it aside and we'll get to the next disc on how we're gonna dye that. So next we're gonna look at a different way, kind of the same way that I dyed that other one, but on this one, remember, I didn't take off any of the sticker at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some time and I'm gonna look at these petals of the wings. When you're dyeing like this, you're gonna want to start with the darkest color that you're gonna end up putting on the disc. So whatever the darkest you want it to be, take those pieces off first and dye them. And then when you come back, go with the next lightest and the next lightest and the next lightest until basically you have like, your lightest would be like a light yellow, or, you know, something like a light green or whatever almost a neutral color is. That way if it bleeds over, if it gets into the other sections, you dyeing yellow on top of a purple is not really going to affect the purple. But if you went the other way around, you know, obviously the purple is going to be darker than the yellow and it's going to dye into it. So, like I said, I'm going to go through the wings here and then we'll kind of show you the process on that, on how you can get several different colors into one. All right, so I pulled off or weeded out a little bit. I'm going to kind of go darker on the left side and then kind of fade it over with some of the colors to the right side. It's going to be just a geometric design. So we're going to paint. I made like a dark purple. Paint the purple on, and we'll go to the weed off some more after I pull that off. It's going to be a longer process when you do this because the fact that you're going to let the purple sit, you know, 45 minutes, wash it off, and then weed off some more, put another color on it, let it sit for 45 minutes, wash it off, and you're going to go through until I get, basically, I'm going to put all 6 colors on there. We're starting off with purple. So now we're going to get to more of the confetti or brainwave type dye, which is going to consist of filling this plate up with shaving cream. I know it's going to be kind of loud. I'm not going to try to talk over it, so I'm going to do that real quick. And of course, that's a dead bottle. Why wouldn't it be, right? So, that's actually not that loud. So, when you do this, you're obviously going to go a little bit over. I say obviously, but you're going to go over the top of the plate a little bit. What I like to do is take something like end of a paintbrush or something, mix it up, try to get it churned, because right now you have a whole bunch of air bubbles in there, right? Try to get it mixed up and try to get it to where you have a nice thick base that's not going to have any big gaps or anything like that. I also like to add a little water to it. Once I start getting it where the plate is mixed up, you can spritz it on there if you want. And all this is going to do is get the shaving cream to a better consistency and not quite so thick. We want it to be kind of watery so the dye interacts with the shaving cream better. And you'll see that here in just a minute. So once you get the shaving cream, you kind of get it up to the edge. The only thing is, you want to make sure that you have a nice flat base. So we're going to do a little bit more here. Now what you can start doing once you get to you have a thicker, more solid base, take something like a ruler. I have this metal ruler that I use most of the time. And you're going to scoop the shaving cream. I usually scoop it on and then run the edge of the knife over. Do this a couple times. What you're trying to do is all these little bubbles, these little pops that you have where the air bubbles and basically in the shaving cream popped, that's going to leave a void in your your dye job. So shave across as many times as it takes you to try to get you have a nice smooth top. And if you have a hard time getting a smooth top, add more water. I don't know if you can see it really good, but there's a visible notice, or noticeably visible. It changes a lot when you put water on it. The shaving cream gets a lot smoother. You can get a smoother base. Now those little lines that I'm making on the ruler, one nice sweep across the very end, you have a nice smooth top. Now you can get it smoother than that. Mine, not as worried about it because of the way this one's going to be dyed. So this is going to be the Cactus Dye. I'm going to do brainwave. I'm going to kind of put, that's the other thing, you got to kind of think of how you want it dyed. I'm going to put some darker here in the middle. And the thing is you don't want to draw the same design over here because you're going to be flipping it over. So you can kind of match it up. Okay, well I want some dark right here. I want some more yellows and browns out towards the edge. So when you were putting your dyes on, your actual powder dye, I'll pop this open and show you here. You're going to want to do it very lightly. When I say lightly, I mean I take this little thing right here because it's just a little scooper. And what I usually do is scoop it up and then tap it on, just very lightly tap it, and it's almost where you can't barely see it. Like if you're putting really light pepper on something, and kind of work your way. You don't want it to all be bunched up in one spot. That was some green. I'm gonna get a little bit of brown towards the bottom. I even like to put some out in the skirts where I know that there's probably not going to be dye, but if it bleeds over, it'll be okay. So now that I got the green, I got a little brown, I'll put some yellow near the top. Ooh, that was a little thicker than I wanted it to be right up there. Now, if you get a spot like that where you can see those two much thicker spots, that's okay. What we're going to need to do is make sure before we actually put the disc on that we put a good amount of water on it. So you can see the dye as it expands out and starts activating with the water. Make sure that you've gotten the water nice and good. Now you can see where some of it, I usually don't turn it up, but my bottle's kind of run out of water. I don't want to make sure that I don't run it. You can get some bigger drops on there. It's not going to hurt anything. In fact, I'm going to put just a little bit more green on there in the middle. once you kind of get it watered, you can see where the colors are going to activate and whatnot. And of course, sprinkling a little bit of water, or sprinkling some dye on top of the water. Not that big a deal, we just want to make sure that we get it wet again. Now when you actually set your disc down in that dye, you want to make sure that you do it nice and smooth. You don't get any air bubbles, so you kind of got to go at an angle when you put it in. Of course, nothing this extreme, but if I hold it like this, you're not going to be able to see I'm putting it at an angle. Kind of put your fingers in the edge because you don't want your thumb on it, so you're going to have to hold it, you know, out like this. And what I do is kind of set one end down into the shaving cream carefully and watch as it kind of fills across the bottom of the disc until I can do the whole thing. Now once you get it in there, this shaving cream, like I said, you know, shaving cream expands. So this shaving cream is going to kind of expand out of the plate. It's going to cover the edges. So if you're doing a disc like this one, you can actually see where the shaving cream, not only did it start expanding, it actually pulled across. That's how you get those streaks that are coming straight out. I've also put some discs in where I have, if you can see this, where when I start getting it into the dye, I put it right in the middle. I don't let it at an angle, I put it right in the middle, and I start spinning the disc a little bit, not about this much as you put it in from this. So this piece right here would kind of spin to about right there. You don't spin it much because if you spin too much, you kind of just blur the lines. But that's how that fade out gets there. So in the middle, you have nice, collective, nice galaxy looking colors. Out here it starts to fade out because the shaving cream rises and it pulls the color out as it rises as well. So we're going to do with this one, same thing as the other ones. We're going to kind of set it over to the side. The good thing about this the shaving cream method is if we don't like the way it looks in 45 minutes after I rinse off all the shaving cream, I'm not going to mess with the sticker. All I'll do is, you know, put another layer of shaving cream out on a plate and put it back in there. I've done it where I've layered different colors. Now you saw how I kind of put green, brown, and yellow on that one. On this one you can see that I had a nice collection of purples and reds up towards the top, and I had light greens and blues over here. You know, I did like a different, kind of sprinkled it across to where I had different colors going across the entire disc. You can totally do that with your design. It makes for a really nice, you know, as long as you have enough dye on there to where you can get a concentration and you can get good crisp lines, it doesn't matter what color you do. It's all going to kind of bleed together when it goes into the plastic. But you do have to kind of consider what color plastic are you putting the dye on. That yellow that I just used for that Tesla, I think the greens, browns, and yellows, the yellow's not going to come out very deep at all, but when it mixes in with the brown and everything, it'll kind of give a different kind of color. So we'll go on to the next disc. That's pretty much almost all the methods. The next one's going to be the putter, and we're going to go all the way out to the edge. So that's going to be a Galaxy Dye method. This one, we got the shaving cream all nice and set up. I'm going to be putting this on the putter. So where that white is, you can kind of see this one is it's almost clear, but it has a little bit of a red in the middle, kind of fades out. It's almost it's kind of a clear blue disc if you look at the edges there. But beautiful disc. I mean, it's so pretty clear. I just want to see. I've never really done a clear disc before. I want to see how this looks. So I'm going to be putting some browns, some purples, and some, or sorry, brown, blue, and red. Brown doesn't really sound like that, you know, like, ooh, that's kind of a, I'm going to put brown on that. But when the brown actually kind of mixes in with the blues and the reds, it looks just badass in my opinion. So I'm going to kind of sprinkle brown across the entire disc. So this one we're going to kind of want a heavier dye because it is clear. I want that nice contrast from the clear to nothing to where we actually have the color. I think that's enough brown. The red, like I said, the red is really intense, and the red really clumps up pretty hard. It's hard not to get the red to bunch up whenever you're doing this. It's like the red is almost like a stickier dye. I think it's because of the dye powder, you know, the dye to powder consistency, basically, ratio, however you want to say it. It's just a thicker dye. So it's really almost wet, it's sticky. Comes out in clumps. But those little red clumps, as long as I can get it to where it's not really dry and powder, because the dry powder laying up against the disc is not going to dye. Even with a little bit of water on it, it's not going to dye as much. It's just, it needs that consistency to have the water and the shaving cream. So you can see how dark that really is. And sorry, I'm a little bit off the camera there, but all I'm looking for now, make sure that I have a nice wet palette. I don't have any dry red spots. You can kind of look at it from an angle with the light shining off of it. You don't want to super oversaturate it. That's why I like to use a misting bottle, because if you try to use a spritz bottle, it'll actually spray down into the shaving cream and it would leave little pits. I think that's going to be pretty good. All right, now with this one, we're going to put the whole thing down at a bit of an angle, get it started. And this one you can actually see as the shaving cream starts sticking to it, making sure we don't have any air bubbles in there. Pressing down to where we have all the light. Okay, now that I'm going to pick it up a little bit and show you, because you can see all the way through it like that. See how the light's coming through right in here? See how you push it down and you get the shaving cream all the way out to the edge. Now this one is an MVP disc. It has that black rim that's not going to dye, so it's not as big of a deal. The Axiom disc, where you have like a red edge or something like that, of course it's going to be a little different, but same thing. I only have one more disc that I'm going to be dyeing. I'll probably just use one of the methods that I've used, so I'll be doing that off camera, and then we'll just kind of do the reveal in the end. But that's pretty much as far as the dyeing methods go. There's not much more to it. You just have to make sure that you take your time. That's the big thing, take your time. So I figure for the sake of the video and for experimentation, I put a little shaving cream in a cup, I watered it down a little bit, I put some red and some brown in, and I was thinking, you know, that actually looks a lot like some rust. Started brushing it on, I didn't like the consistency, and I was thinking, especially for this fallout one and on this like hyper yellow, I really need it to dye in good. So to get this kind of rusty color, what I used was a little bit of this Worm Glow acetone worm dye additive, and my fingers are all dyed up. So I'm kind of just painting it on, and you can see how it looks a little different even when I'm painting it on, because it's mixed up with the shaving cream and everything. It actually definitely has like a nice dark color. I'm hoping when it washes off, it's kind of rusty looking, because that's the whole thing with, you know, post-apocalyptic wasteland type thing. You know, nice rust colored. Hoping that it looks good. So I am going to try something. All right, you know, I am trying something a little different. Kind of keeping the strokes the same way, because I'm sure there's going to be some streaks in the dye. So trying to keep it all going one way. We'll see what that looks like whenever it clears off too. All right. So this, I'll kind of show you after about 45 minutes. That purple dye that I put on this disc, it's nice and deep into the plastic. It's very good. Unfortunately, some of the places the plastic lifted up and I got a little dye around the edges. Now what I'm going to do on this one to try to fix it, and I'll kind of go through the process on that one, is I'm going to take all this off. I'll show you what the disc looks like, and then I'm going to put it back into the shaving cream with the confetti dye to kind of try to straighten this up, kind of like what I did on the Majora's Mask. And it really does stink that that kind of bled out like that, but we're going to fix it. We're going to make it look good. I'll show you the method. How I ended up doing was taking some acetone and a rag, and I wiped off the little bleed around the edge, and the stencil came out pretty nice. So I ran out of daylight yesterday. I'm finishing up this video this morning. So you saw this one with the skull helmet. Came out pretty good, other than the little bit of bleed here at the bottom. Had a little bit of bleeding on the cicada as well, where it's kind of muffled around here. It kind of got, it bled through where the sticker was over the previous stamp, but everywhere else it came out pretty clean. That's a dynamic disc halo. That's a good looking disc. I'm gonna have fun with that one. The Cactus man that I used, I ended up going back and putting him through a second layer of dye. The green didn't come out as dark as I wanted it to, so I kind of put some orange and browns in there. A little bit of red, made it look more a little bronze to try to stand out. And then these two, the clear discs, like I said, I kind of went, the outer edge was dyed in on this one, and I really like the way that looked out. And then the acetone on this one, I used, not the acetone, I used a little bit of that worm dye with some of the shaving cream and dye that I had. That one ended up coming out pretty nice too. A little bit of streaking or fading out near the bottom, but overall, I mean, kind of going for that rust look, it ended up coming out pretty good. I was pretty happy with both of these. So that's all 5 of them. So that's pretty much it for the shaving cream method. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions or comments, concerns, you can put them down below and I'll try to answer them as they pop up. And enjoy growing the sport and making some custom discs that your friends are going to try to steal from you.